By the summer of 1944, an invisible city stretched across the Texas plains, constructed not for Americans, but for their enemies. According to the Office of the Provost Marshal General, more than 250,000 German prisoners of war were confined in over 70 camps scattered across the state, forming the largest network of enemy housing on U.S. soil. Camp Bowie, Camp Hearne, and Camp Swift rose from dust in record time, each laid out with fire stations, hospitals, post offices, and electric grids designed by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. To captured Wehrmacht soldiers, the sight was surreal. Expecting chains and starvation, they found air-cooled barracks, libraries, and baseball fields. In every sense, it was a self-contained city, reported a 1945 inspection by the International Red Cross. Behind barbed wire, men of Rommel's Afrika Korps built their own bakeries and orchestras under Geneva Convention rules, guaranteeing equal treatment. The engineering achievement was staggering. Texas camps consumed over 70 million board feet of lumber, used 1,200 miles of fencing, and produced $100 million in wartime labor value, figures confirmed in War Department construction reports. Where German officers anticipated humiliation, they instead encountered the efficiency and abundance of American logistics. Across an ocean, German propagandists dismissed the stories as Allied lies. But declassified U.S. Army records reveal something extraordinary. American engineers had literally built a functioning German city in the desert. So how did it happen? And why did the United States treat its enemies with such precision, order, and unexpected humanity? Before their surrender in North Africa, most German soldiers believed capture by Americans meant degradation or death. Nazi propaganda had worked relentlessly to portray the United States as a nation of mechanical bloat, industrial, yes, but crude, disorganized, and morally weak. Wehrmacht circulars from 1943, discovered in U.S. Army intelligence files, warned troops that the Anglo-Americans lacked soldierly discipline and understanding of honor. To the men of Rommel's vaunted Afrika Korps, the notion of humane captivity was laughable. German radio broadcasts from Berlin described American engineers as factory men, incapable of hardship. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel himself reportedly told subordinates in early 1943, "Our enemies fight with machines, not with imagination." That arrogance collapsed when thousands of his veterans, captured in Tunisia, were loaded onto Liberty ships bound for Texas. On arrival, they passed endless rows of symmetrical barracks wired with electricity, running water, and fresh paint, structures mapped and completed by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in less than 90 days. Captured officer Lieutenant Heinz Grun, whose diary is preserved in the Texas Historical Commission archives, wrote, "We had expected cages. Instead, there were gardens and neat streets." Others compared Camp Hearne to a model town. Even German censors at home grew suspicious when letters described orchestras, libraries, and 4 meals a day. Intercepted communications compiled in Office of War Information File 2743 noted growing disbelief among Wehrmacht ranks. Reports from America cannot be true. No army treats enemies so. The myth of Allied barbarity, cultivated by Joseph Goebbels' Ministry of Propaganda, eroded rapidly as Red Cross reports confirmed the opposite. Within a year, German morale suffered measurable decline. Army Group B intelligence summaries from late 1944 lamented that our soldiers now surrender more easily when captured by Americans. While the Third Reich glorified toughness, the Americans quietly demonstrated a new form of dominance, efficiency through organization and engineering. While Germany celebrated its iron will, declassified American engineering memos reveal something far more formidable taking shape beneath the Texas sun. When the first German prisoners arrived in 1942, the United States was not ready for them. War Department planners had anticipated 25,000 captives at most. By 1945, official records show that number had exploded to more than $425,000, a logistical nightmare that stretched from Maine to California. Texas alone would hold over half. The Army Corps of Engineers, already overloaded with barracks and depot construction, was suddenly ordered to build entire self-contained towns for enemies, each with water systems, sewage plants, mess halls, and hospitals. Material shortages plagued every project. Quartermaster logs from 1943 recorded steel diverted to shipyards, forcing engineers to rely on timber and tar paper. Temperatures at Camp Bowie exceeded 110 degrees, buckling early structures and cracking concrete. Manpower shortages forced reliance on civilian contractors, many working 12-hour shifts under War Production Board quotas. One internal memo from Fort Sam Houston's 8th Service Command complained that, "We are building cities for Germans while Americans sleep in tents." Public skepticism mirrored official doubt. Editorials in the Dallas Morning News questioned the wisdom of housing enemies in comfort while soldiers fight abroad. Congressmen demanded audits of food, lumber, and labor costs. Yet the Provost Marshal General's office, led by Major General Archer Lurch, insisted that Geneva Convention compliance was not charity but strategy. Humane treatment would encourage surrender and demonstrate American civilization at its best. Against these odds, engineers devised an extraordinary modular plan. Standardized blueprints allowed rapid duplication statewide, each 320-acre layout expandable in quadrants of 4,000 men. By late 1943, the system worked so efficiently that a new camp could rise from empty prairie in 90 days. The United States, short on resources but rich in organization, had turned necessity into innovation, and the world's largest captivity program into a triumph of engineering discipline. But classified Army planning documents reveal the real secret, an architectural system of precision and control that stunned even America's allies. Declassified. Army Corps of Engineers reports reveal that beneath the appearance of improvisation lay a blueprint of astonishing sophistication. The Corps' Southwest Division, headquartered in Dallas, created a standardized modular system codenamed Plan A41, which allowed engineers to reproduce fully functional camps anywhere in Texas within 90 days. Each design combined living quarters, administrative buildings, medical wards, and workshops arranged in self-contained quadrants, an architectural echo of a small American town. At the heart of the strategy was efficiency through replication. Camp Hearne, completed in late 1943, became the prototype. Engineering Bulletin E17 documented innovations such as gravity-fed water towers, underground sewage lines, and a centralized power grid that could support thousands of lights, kitchens, and refrigeration units. To combat the desert heat, construction crews installed double-roof ventilation, an early form of swamp cooling, verified in the Corps' post-war engineering summaries. What looked humane was also calculated control. By building predictable infrastructure, the U.S. could monitor movement, assign labor, and maintain order with minimal manpower. As Colonel Clyde M. Roper of the POW Division noted in a 1944 memorandum, organization is the strongest fence. The design's symmetry reduced psychological unrest. German officers, accustomed to order, responded with cooperation. Innovation extended beyond architecture. The Quartermaster Corps integrated captured German technical skills into camp operations, assigning electricians, carpenters, and mechanics to maintain the very systems that confined them. This policy, recorded in PMGO Circular 23, increased productivity while fostering discipline. Engineers tracked every resource, from 70 million board feet of lumber to 12,000 tons of concrete, logged meticulously in Construction Report 214. Intelligence officers later recognized the program's dual value, technological and psychological. Red Cross inspectors reported remarkably high morale, while internal Army analyses, RG 389, concluded that Structured responsibility within humane limits prevents disorder. In essence, the United States had converted engineering design into behavioral management. Even America's allies were stunned. British liaison officers touring Camp Bowie in 1944 called it a model of logistical economy. What the Wehrmacht had dismissed as crude industrialism emerged as a revelation of systematic genius. As the final blueprints spread across Texas, intercepted German communications showed complete ignorance of what was coming, an invisible empire of discipline rising in the desert. By the spring of 1943, the 8th Service Command transformed the Texas heartland into an immense construction theater. Army Corps of Engineers convoys moved south from Fort Worth, hauling prefabricated lumber, generators, and thousands of rolls of barbed wire. Quartermaster records show more than 5,000 rail cars of materials delivered between April and August alone. Military maps plotted new camps on heat-scorched prairies chosen for flat terrain, rail access and distance from the coast, strategically secure, yet near enough to labor-starved farms. Meteorological data from the U.S. Weather Bureau confirm weeks of 108-degree heat, forcing engineers to pour concrete at night and cover drying slabs with wet burlap. Water towers rose first, followed by mess halls and hospital blocks, each structure numbered and logged in construction register 389TX. The rhythm became mechanical. Survey. Grade frame wire inspect. By June, skeletal grids of roads and fences traced new geometries across the desert. Meanwhile, intelligence officers tracked the first convoys of prisoners crossing the Atlantic. According to War Department Movement Order 912A, Liberty ships carrying Africa Corps veterans docked at Newport News before rail transfer to Texas in sealed cars under military police escort. Local residents watched in disbelief as endless trains of captured Germans disappeared westward. Enemy intelligence, however, remained blind. Declassified Abwehr summaries from late 1943 indicate no awareness of the Texas network's scale. Berlin assumed prisoners were dispersed randomly. In reality, American precision had already produced a logistical masterpiece. A centralized grid of camps linked by depots, maintenance hubs and communication lines. Camp Hearne opened officially on August 10, 1943. Its 4,000-man capacity reached within days. As floodlights illuminated barbed wire perimeters stretching for miles, one engineer scribbled in his field log, "We have built a city from nothing but heat and time." And then, almost overnight, the first German metropolis on American soil came fully alive. Its routines documented minute by minute in U.S. Army engineering logs. For the engineers of the U.S. Army Corps, the fight wasn't waged with rifles but with slide rules, bulldozers, and sweat. Beginning in June 1943, the construction tempo in central Texas matched that of an active front. At 0430 hours, crews began pouring cement foundations. By 1900, generators roared to life. At midnight, floodlights cut through dust clouds as carpenters hammered in unison. The daily logs from Camp Bowie Construction Report No. 7 list more than 12,000 man-hours expended every 24 hours, an industrial rhythm of war. Army Quartermaster. Depots issued precise quotas: 2 tons of nails, 20,000 feet of wiring, and 50 truckloads of lumber per day. The records, preserved in RG 389, Box 218, show an efficiency rivaling assembly line production. "We built them like clockwork," remembered Foreman Roy Higgins, a civilian contractor from Brownwood. Each camp had its own heartbeat. Steady, fast, never missing a beat. Working conditions were brutal. Temperatures soared past 110 degrees. Windstorms filled lungs with grit. Engineers poured concrete at night, slept in their trucks by day, and still met their deadlines. One field note from Lieutenant William McCarty, dated July 17, 1943, reads, "Dust and heat constant. Morale good. Progress excellent." German POWs, many trained tradesmen, soon joined under Geneva Convention labor rules, earning 80 cents a day. They erected their own barracks, guard towers, and recreation halls under supervision, effectively becoming builders of their confinement. Every process was documented. Blueprint margins carried handwritten updates, ventilation tests, pipe pressures, electrical loads, all later compiled into Engineering Summary Number 12, a classified manual on rapid military construction. Within 95 days, the first complete city of 4,000 prisoners stood ready, complete with hospital wards, kitchens capable of feeding 10,000 meals daily, and its own fire brigade. Inspection teams from Washington compared it to a miracle. One visiting officer recorded, "This operation rivals the Normandy build-up in efficiency." The achievement was not just structural, it was symbolic. Amid a global war, American engineers had proven that discipline and design could triumph over chaos. By September, the Army Service Forces declared the Texas POW project operational. The lights of Camp Hearne glowed across the desert as diesel engines hummed through the night. Locals nicknamed it the German City. Behind the wire, orchestras rehearsed ovens baked bread, and water towers stood like monuments to American planning. But even as the last nail was driven, the psychological effects of this engineered order were already rippling across continents, reaching the minds of German soldiers, still fighting overseas. As the first letters from Texas reached Germany in late 1943, disbelief turned to panic within the Reich's propaganda offices. Intercepted mail, reviewed by the U.S. Army Censorship Division, contained phrases like, "We eat well, we play music, we live cleanly." One soldier at Camp Hearne wrote home, "America has defeated us with kindness more effectively than with bombs." These letters, forwarded through the International Red Cross, undermined years of Nazi conditioning. Berlin's response was immediate. Goebbels' Ministry of Propaganda issued new directives forbidding publication of POW correspondence that contradicted national spirit. Yet the truth leaked through families and soldiers on leave. Allied intelligence noted a measurable morale shift. Captured diaries from Italy and France mentioned rumors of paradise camps in the American desert. According to Army Group B intelligence summaries, September 1944, troops surrender more readily when capture by Americans is expected. Prisoner interrogations confirm the effect. At Fort Hunt, Virginia, the secret POW center, codenamed P.O. Box 1142, German officers admitted astonishment. One Luftwaffe engineer, interrogated in March 1944, said, "Your engineers build faster than we can bomb." Reports from Camp Bowie describe similar reactions. Prisoners volunteering for camp maintenance and discipline roles, transforming captivity into orderly cooperation. The contrast to Axis expectations was devastating. Official Red Cross inspections praised the camp's cleanliness, order, and absence of maltreatment. Inspectors even noted POW theatrical performances and printed newspapers, astonishing liberties under military custody. The International Committee of the Red Cross Report number 2435 concluded, "These installations are organized to a standard unknown in Europe." By war's end, the German High Command faced a collapse of its most powerful weapon, belief. Propaganda promising glory now collided with the visible reality of American capability. For many captured soldiers, the desert city symbolized not defeat by force, but humiliation by organization. And while German morale withered, America's reputation soared, the Texas camps becoming proof that logistics and humanity could coexist even in total war. By 1944, the desert cities built for German prisoners were producing measurable dividends for the American war effort. According to the War Department's Prisoner of War Operations Report, the Texas POW system generated more than $100 million in wartime labor value, the equivalent of $1 billion today. Under Geneva Convention Article 27, POWs could be assigned non-military work, and the Army seized that opportunity with methodical precision. German prisoners became indispensable to Texas agriculture. Records from the U.S. Department of Agriculture show more than 30,000 POWs harvesting cotton, building silos, repairing fences, and clearing irrigation canals during the critical 1944 and 1945 seasons. County reports documented harvests saved from collapse. A farmer near Brownwood wrote, "Without the Germans, the crops would have died on the stalk." Prisoners also worked in lumber mills, canneries and military depots under guard, receiving token wages credited to camp accounts. The domestic benefits extended far beyond economics. Military historians at the U.S. Army Center of Military History note that POW labor freed nearly 6,000 American soldiers from manual work, reassigning them to combat and logistics roles abroad. Civilian morale shifted as Texans witnessed order and productivity within the barbed wire. Once feared enemies became laborers who built roads, mended churches, and even performed concerts for local audiences under supervision. Media coverage evolved accordingly. The Dallas Morning News headline of November 12, 1944, praised the quiet efficiency of America's engineers who made desert towns bloom. Red Cross inspectors cited the camps as evidence of democratic strength. Economic data compiled by the Quartermaster Corps confirmed reduced strain on wartime industry and food supply. By late 1945, as prisoners prepared for repatriation, Texas stood as a model of strategic resource management, proof that engineering, organization and restraint could yield victory as surely as firepower. The POW cities had become laboratories of controlled coexistence, producing not only goods but goodwill. But the true legacy of these engineered cities would extend far beyond wartime productivity, reshaping military planning, diplomacy, and the very image of American power. In the aftermath of victory, the U.S. Army's Texas POW network stood as a monument to organized efficiency. Long after the barbed wire came down, its influence continued to shape American military thinking. According to the U.S. Army War College Study No. 44117, 1947, lessons from POW camp construction were later applied to overseas base development, refugee housing, and post-war occupation logistics. The modular design principles perfected by the Army Corps of Engineers in 1943 reappeared in Cold War installations from Germany to Korea architectural. Historians at Texas A&M University traced the lineage of post-war military housing to Camp Bowie's. Blueprints, standardized, expandable and cost-efficient. The Army's 1946 Technical Bulletin E-17, once a classified engineering manual, became required reading in officer training programs for its sections on rapid settlement construction. These innovations, born in desert heat and urgency, eventually informed the planning of Marshall Plan reconstruction zones in devastated Europe. On the humanitarian front, the Texas experience transformed how the world perceived American power. The International Committee of the Red Cross cited the U.S. program as a benchmark of humane logistics, influencing future Geneva Convention amendments. Historian Arnold Kramer later observed, "Nowhere else in wartime history did engineers demonstrate that compassion could be designed into architecture." Even decades later, echoes of the POW city endure in community planning. Former camp engineers, including Lieutenant William McCarty, went on to design suburban neighborhoods using the same layout philosophy: grid-based order, civic functionality, and modular adaptability. Their wartime blueprints seeded post-war America's suburban expansion. In cultural memory, the Texas camps became symbols of pragmatic morality, proof that the United States could wield industrial might without cruelty. Museums at Camp Hearne and Camp Bowie now preserve barracks foundations, toolkits, and prisoner art as physical reminders of an era when engineering and ethics aligned military education. Materials continue to cite the project as a case study in total resource integration, turning scarcity into strength through design discipline. The camps, once built for containment, ultimately embodied freedom's logic: order without oppression. And as historians concluded, the story of America's desert city revealed a truth deeper than strategy. Engineering could serve not only to win wars, but to define civilization itself. The Texas POW cities stand today as silent diagrams of American purpose, proof that victory in World War II was not measured solely in battles won, but in systems built. According to the Office of the Provost Marshal General's 1945 report, the entire network housed 250,000 German prisoners with a mortality rate under 1%, a statistic unmatched anywhere in the global conflict. These camps functioned not as monuments to vengeance, but as laboratories of order and restraint. Within their grids of wire and wood, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers demonstrated that architecture could embody principle. Every water tower, latrine, and mess hall expressed a moral decision to defeat tyranny through discipline, not degradation. When the war ended, Red Cross observers concluded, "The United States has shown that humanity and efficiency can coexist under arms." The story of America's desert city remains more than a historical curiosity. It is a blueprint for what power can be when guided by values. The same organizational rigor that built these camps later rebuilt nations, sustained allies, and projected stability far beyond the battlefield. From Camp Hearne's dusty streets to the Marshall Plan's reconstructed ports, the line of influence is clear and documented. For modern audiences, the lesson is timeless. Strength is not brutality. It is precision governed by conscience. As Major General Archer Lurch once summarized in a 1946 address, "We built as we believed, because freedom must prove its competence." Today, as visitors walk the remains of Camp Bowie or Hearne, they tread the blueprint of an idea, that even in captivity, civilization can prevail. Closing, call to action. History doesn't just record wars, it records how nations chose to fight them. Remember this American city in the Texas desert, and the engineers who proved that victory built on integrity endures longest.